Adolf Hitler was born on April 20, 1889, in Braunau am Inn, Austria. Hitler's father, Alois, was illegitimate. After his father retired from the state customs service, Adolf Hitler spent most of his childhood in Linz, the capital of Upper Austria. It remained his favorite city, and he wished to be buried there. Alois Hitler died in 1903 but left an adequate pension and savings to support his wife and children. Although Hitler feared and disliked his father, he was a devoted son to his mother, who died after much suffering in 1907. With a mixed record as a student, Hitler only advanced up to a secondary education. After leaving school, he visited Vienna and returned to Linz, where he dreamed of becoming an artist. Later, he used the small allowance he continued to draw to maintain himself in Vienna. He wished to study art, for which he had some faculties, but he failed to secure entry to the Academy of Fine Arts twice. For some years, he lived a lonely and isolated life, earning a precarious livelihood by painting postcards and advertisements and drifting from one municipal hostel to another. Hitler already showed traits that characterized his later life: loneliness and secretiveness, a bohemian mode of everyday existence, and hatred of cosmopolitanism and the multinational character of Vienna. In 1913, Hitler moved to Munich. Screened for Austrian military service in February 1914, he was classified as unfit because of inadequate physical vigor. Still, when World War I broke out, he petitioned Bavarian King Louis III to be allowed to serve. One day after submitting that request, he was notified that he would be permitted to join the 16th Bavarian Reserve Infantry Regiment. After 8 weeks of training, Hitler was deployed in October 1914 to Belgium, where he participated in the First Battle of Ypres. He served throughout the war, was wounded in October 1916, and was gassed 2 years later near Ypres. He was hospitalized when the conflict ended. During the war, he was continuously in the front line as a headquarters runner. His bravery in action was rewarded with the Iron Cross, Second Class, in December 1914, and the Iron Cross, First Class, a rare decoration for a corporal, in August 1918. He greeted the war with enthusiasm, as a great relief from the frustration and aimlessness of civilian life. He found discipline and comradeship satisfying, which was confirmed by his belief in the heroic virtues of war. How did Adolf Hitler rise to power? Discharged from the hospital amid the social chaos that followed Germany's defeat, Hitler took up political work in Munich in May-June 1919. As an army political agent, he joined the small German Workers' Party in Munich, September 1919. In 1920, he was put in charge of the party's propaganda. He left the army to devote himself to improving his position within the party, which in that year was renamed the Nationalsozialistische Deutsche Arbeiterpartei, Nazi. Conditions were ripe for the development of such a party. Resentment at the loss of the war and the severity of the peace terms added to the economic woes and brought widespread discontent. This was incredibly sharp in Bavaria, due to its traditional separatism and the region's widespread dislike of the Republican government in Berlin. In March 1920, a coup d'état by a few army officers attempted in vain to establish a right-wing government. Munich was a gathering place for dissatisfied former servicemen and members of the Freikorps, which had been organized in 1918-19 from units of the German army that were unwilling to return to civilian life, and for political plotters against the Republic. Many of these joined the Nazi Party. Foremost among them was Ernst Röhm, a district army command staff member, who had joined the German Workers' Party before Hitler and was of great help in furthering Hitler's rise within the party. It was he who recruited the strong armed squads used by Hitler to protect party meetings, to attack socialists and communists, and to exploit violence for the impression of strength it gave. In 1921, these squads were formally organized under Röhm into a private party army, the SA. Röhm was also able to secure protection from the Bavarian government, which depended on the local army command for the maintenance of order and which tacitly accepted some of his terrorist tactics. Conditions were favorable for the growth of the minor party, and Hitler was sufficiently astute to take full advantage of them. When he joined the party, he found it ineffective, committed to a program of nationalist and socialist ideas but uncertain of its aims and divided in its leadership. He accepted its program but regarded it as a means to an end. His propaganda and ambition caused friction with the other party leaders. Hitler countered their attempts to curb him by threatening resignation, and because the party's future depended on his power to organize publicity and acquire funds, his opponents relented. In July 1921, he became their leader with almost unlimited powers. From the first, he set out to create a mass movement whose mystique and power would be sufficient to bind its members in loyalty to him. He engaged in unrelenting propaganda through the party newspaper, the Völkischer Beobachter, Popular Observer, acquired in 1920, and through meetings whose audiences soon grew from a handful to thousands. With his charismatic personality and dynamic leadership, he attracted a devoted cadre of Nazi leaders. Men whose names today live in infamy: Johann Dietrich Eckart, who acted as a mentor for Hitler, Alfred Rosenberg, Rudolf Hess, Hermann Göring, and Julius Streicher. The climax of this rapid growth of the Nazi Party in Bavaria came in an attempt to seize power in the Munich Beer Hall Putsch of November 1923, when Hitler and General Erich Ludendorff tried to take advantage of the prevailing confusion and opposition to the Weimar Republic to force the leaders of the Bavarian government and the local army commander to proclaim a national revolution. In the melee that resulted, the police and the army fired at the advancing marchers, killing a few. Hitler was injured, and 4 policemen were killed. Placed on trial for treason, he characteristically took advantage of the immense publicity afforded him. He also drew a vital lesson from the putsch, that the movement must legally achieve power. He was sentenced to 5 years but served only 9 months, and those in relative comfort at Landsberg Castle. Hitler used the time to dictate the first volume of Mein Kampf, his political autobiography, and a compendium of his multitudinous ideas. Hitler's ideas included inequality among races, nations, and individuals as part of an unchangeable natural order that exalted the Aryan race as the creative element of mankind. According to Hitler, the natural unit of mankind was the Volk, the people, of which the German people were the greatest. Moreover, he believed that the state existed to serve the Volk, a mission that the Weimar German Republic betrayed to him. This criterion judged all morality and truth, whether it followed the interest and preservation of the Volk. Parliamentary democratic government stood doubly condemned. It assumed the equality of individuals for Hitler did not exist and supposed that what was in the interests of the Volk could be decided by parliamentary procedures. Instead, Hitler argued that the unity of the Volk would find its incarnation in the Führer, endowed with perfect authority.